Oh, we're back in the midst of the international break, but nevertheless, Sky still heavily on our minds, particularly with these mysterious international injuries. How are you, and are you enjoying the break?
Yeah, I'm all good, thanks, Fergi. I missed you on the last pod, although Dan done a fantastic job.
You did indeed.
Yeah, I'm enjoying the break. I'd say I've not been thinking about fantasy, but based on current situation in Sky, I've been making quite a bit of loose plans. I've not thought about any of the other games. We just recorded the Nip and a Half podcast, and we're kind of talking about it there. But I've done little in terms of thinking about the other games, but I have been thinking about Sky quite a bit, and I guess making sure that I continue to play the way that I've played to date, and that I don't start changing based on current rank and stuff like that. I think that's the worst thing to do. So even if I've got to the end of the season and I didn't finish as high as what I hoped, then at least I'll play it my way and I won't have any regrets about doing that.
I'll say, when I used to ring you during the Dream Team season, I used to call you, didn't I, and go, Paul, I'm stuck. What am I going to do? And your advice was always the same. It was always just do what you've done so far because it's working, and that just helps. And that's the thing, is this no regrets thing, right? Not no regrets around going for it. It's no regrets about going against what you would normally do, and that's massive. So yeah, but well played. I'm sure everyone knows, but if you haven't, Paul is currently ranked 2nd and 6th overall. So a really, really good chance not only of having an incredible season, but potentially of winning the game. 25 points off top, Paul. Well played. I'm 10th as well. I'm having the best season of my life in Sky. I think my previous highest rank was 17th, I think it was 3 seasons ago now, but I kind of peaked at 17th, and I knew I was going backwards, whereas now with the 10th, I've still got a good team, a good transfer count. So while I maybe think, I'll obviously try and win and try and beat you, but I know we've probably got similar transfer accounts. I know our teams are quite similar. We do have some differences, but I'm certainly not going to go out on a limb just to be different to try and win. I'm going to keep playing my game as well and see where it finishes. But amazing to be up there again for both of us this time, mate. So yeah, fantastic stuff. Welcome everyone in the chat. Julian Wardle says, evening both, looking forward to this international break withdrawal symptoms. Darren Skidmore is in. Jason Harry is in. David Baxter, who was also having an incredible season. Jason Harry, Glenn Murray says, good evening, tea time, dinner time, whatever it may be in your country. It's not in the country, though, I find, with this thing. So I'm it's locality, I think, because I've always had breakfast, dinner and tea. But apparently that's I think that's a bit chavvy, in it, and people have lunch and dinner. I don't know.
Or if you're from up north, so like my partner's not from up north, but her family is. Your dinner, maybe they say like your dinner is your lunch, which is
that's what mine is. That's what mine is.
But they call it dinner as opposed to dinner.
Oh, dinner.
I don't know if that's spelt differently, or it's in fact just based on how they say it, which is potentially the case.
Yeah, it's crazy because I'm from roughly about 50 miles away from where I was born and bred, and even the differences 15 miles away are crazy. So what do you have then? Do you have lunch and dinner? Or supper?
Tea or dinner, I would interchange, I think.
Really? Oh, interesting. Okay. Ben McCrum is in. Can't wait to catch it live. Gordon Hamilton, Jack Edwards, Johnny White, Gaz Byrne, Paul Jones, everyone in. Great to have you with us to chat Sky FF today. Paul, what are we going to be talking about today?
Talk quite a bit about Arsenal. Talk about transfer account. Talk about transfer opportunities, transfer management, and then just the usual things to finish us off.
More importantly, Matthew Donald says supper is dinner, and Richard Brooks says dinner is lunch and tea is tea in Yorkshire. Yeah, but I know some people, when you say tea, they think it as a cup of tea, not even like a meal. So it's crazy, isn't it? Anyway, back to Sky. Hop off Arsenal first. Yeah, we've been talking about this point in the season for a long time, haven't we? This was the point when we lumped in on Arsenal. Well, it was a couple of months ago now, wasn't it? We kind of saw this point and thought this period of wherever it was 9 games is absolutely key, and it comes to an end maybe on Saturday. It comes to an obvious end. But yeah, Saliba, Gabriel, Martinelli, Odegaard, Saka have done owners really well, as have others as well. What's your current thinking on Arsenal, Paul, after the Leeds game?
Yeah, so I think one thing that you said there kind of sticks out is that it looks obvious, right? Like they play on a Saturday and then teams play a multitude of games. But here's a quick one for you, right? From the time, so after Saturday's games, because you're obviously maybe Salah different if he doesn't play, but you're going to play your Arsenal players on Saturday. You're not going to transfer them out before that game. So if we start the clock on finish Saturday, start Sunday, as when you potentially make transfers, up until and including the Arsenal Southampton game that's on a Friday night, only 3 teams play more games than Arsenal in that period of time in the league.
But which of the 3 teams? Because this is what's important for me.
I absolutely agree. So Brighton, Man United, and Newcastle.
3 good teams.
Sorry, not Brighton. It's West Ham. I thought I had originally in my head remembered that Brighton were supposed to play Newcastle, but it doesn't look like that's going to go ahead now until later on in the season. So it's Man United, Newcastle, and West Ham. Yeah. Now, whilst Jared Bowen could be an excellent differential for anyone looking to gain rank, West Ham's fixtures are great. I don't think it's going to be a mass jump on to him. Those that don't own Rashford probably go back and pick up Rashford. Bruno, perhaps. The Man United defence, I'm less interested on. There's limited bonus there, and Casemiro's out, so those appeal less to me. And then Newcastle's just not a team that particularly interests me just now. Even when they went through that spell before of picking up all the clean sheets, it was predominantly sevens that the players were picking up, like no real bonus attributes from defence. Maybe Isak, but feels like striker spots are at a premium just now, and it's almost 4-3, and that's before Isak as well, thinking of Tony, Haaland, Kane and Watkins. So that does leave Man United, and I say Bruno's a good option as well as Rashford. I just don't think it's no longer to me as clear cut as it once was. And it's not to say that I won't move 1 or 2 Arsenal players on. I still own Salah, and I will move on. I will move him on, especially if he is injured and misses that game. But it's maybe not as clear cut as what I once thought. And then you go down the route of, right, do you want to use 3-for-1s? Like, you could move an Arsenal player onto a Leicester player, or you could move an Arsenal player onto a Brighton player in that period of time as well for a 3-for-1. But you're almost penciling in 3 transfers per 1 move when you're considering that. You're taking your Arsenal player out to bring the other player in, to bring the Arsenal player in, knowing that you're going to transfer the Arsenal player back out again.
Yeah, but you're also daisy chaining, aren't you, as well? It's not just backing and forwarding. There are players. So Enzo Fernandez is a prime example of someone, doing something like Gabriel to Enzo, for me, is an absolute no-brainer if you don't own him, because he's going to be one, he ticks along with bonus. He's got the short-term fixtures. He'll have a 3-for-1 over Arsenal. You're going to want him anyway. And then there's Man United as well.
I'm not going to transfer in Enzo. I know that you and Dan,
that's going to cost you. That's going to cost you first face, mate. That's how you know.
I don't think so. No, it might. I'm not suggesting I'm going to win it anyway, but yeah, I don't think he's going to be as popular as you think he is. I know that you and Dan were talking in the last pod, and you thought his ownership could reach something like 90% in the top 1K or really high epsilon anyway. Like, take into consideration that some people have no transfers. I do like Enzo, and I think that I will go for him, but I think I'll wait and pick him up after FPL Gameweek 32. I can't remember what that is in Sky, but after that, I think I might consider getting him in. There's a good hop-off point for some of the players that I'm penciling into one at that point. But yeah, I'm not saying that we shouldn't come off Arsenal players. What I think I'm saying is that if you're lower on transfers, there's definitely an argument for keeping more than what we were perhaps considering keeping for those reasons that I've just mentioned.
Well, looking at my team, so I've got 5, and I was always probably going to retain 2 just for the fact that they're fantastic assets regardless. It's not a case of, you've just jumped on them for this fixture run. Someone like Saka, for example, for me, I kind of want anyway, and I probably want a defender anyway. I would want Salah, I think, but with this injury news, we're just not sure. So I moved him on anyway, but I might stick with Zinchenko now potentially. Assuming he continues to play and stuff. But I think with Gabriel, I don't see much upside of Gabriel or Zinchenko for the 1.1. I think the 1.1 can go far because we haven't mentioned him yet, but we're all going to want Mo Salah at some point. And I think my primary focus now on my team is not just, who do I take out, who do I get in for the short-term gains. I do think Leicester as well. I think Maddison look really, really good. They have a 5-2 over quite a few teams starting from Tuesday midweek. So that's another player, for example, I'm interested in, and my United players. But I think what I'm trying to do now is, obviously manipulate the fixtures to my advantage, try and get extra fixture volume, but also to put myself in a position where I can hop to any player I want, which is I couldn't do it with Salah, a few weeks ago, which is why it's why I missed his haul. And part of the reason why I think I had such a good first half of the season is I managed to get in Salah, Kane, and Haaland into my team really early and just leave them there. Also, a lot of other managers were hopping about, weren't they? And they missed hauls and stuff. So and used transfers. So I think that's going to be my primary goal over looking at the next two weekends, is getting my team to a point where I can get to where I want in future really easily, but obviously maximising the fixtures as well. The fixtures as well.
I think Maddison will be really won't be it'll be a really good differential in the short term. And the reason why I'm considering not going for him just now is that he is on 8 bookings now. You shouldn't really be fearful of that, but there's a point in time where I'm going to want him as captain on Sky Gameweek 39 on 1st of May, where they play Everton. And I don't know that I wouldn't be annoyed if I brought Maddison now. But you're not bringing him in for that game because they've got really good short-term fixtures as well, completely granted. I'm not. I just don't want to bring him in, jump off him, and then bring him back in for that game. And at the same time, there's no guarantee that he won't be suspended for that game now as well. Yeah. So there's alternatives, and that's why I'm looking at alternatives to Maddison. As I say, Bowen has good short-term fixtures. Probably not someone I'd be going for as well. Based on my thoughts just now, is get the players in that I think will be the most captained on game days. So the way I like to play the game, not making sure I don't end up in a similar situation to that Salah haul from 2 or 3 weeks ago, and play the fixture volumes, like play with Arsenal, like getting the Arsenal players early, players from teams that have got volumes of fixtures over kind of medium term, and who will play every week. Like, kind of still want to avoid the City defenders, even though like Diaz seems to be playing most of the games. I don't think I'll go back there, even though City do have volume fixtures later on as well.
What's your thinking on Haaland on Saturday? I think his ownership is around 39% now, which is obviously the lowest it's been all season, and with good reason. They don't then play till the following Saturday. There are alternative captaincy options on Saturday, such as Arsenal against Leeds, someone like Saka, or Gabriel or Zinchenko, or something like that. Brighton also home to Brentford. I think another team has got a decent fixture as well. I can't think what it is off the top of my head. Brentford, way to Brighton, Villa and Chelsea. Okay, that's not the best. But for those who are considering bringing Haaland back, when you would guess that Tony would probably be the player who people would look to get rid of. What's your thinking?
I think there's a valid argument for doing it. I mean, he does play the following Saturday now as well instead of the Sunday. That game is brought forward. I think certainly since the last time I was on the pod, I can't remember if that had already been moved by the last time you recorded or not as well. But that does change things slightly. Tony is one booking away from a suspension. I wouldn't be using 2 transfers to do it, but if you've got Tony and you've got the money in the bank to do so, I do think that's a viable move. Tony's fixtures are away to Brighton and away to Man United now. There's nothing to suggest that he couldn't score in both of those games, but he isn't going to be captained in either of the games, so you're mitigating risk by that. But maybe this is opportunity. Like if your rank isn't where you want it to be, and you're you're happy to start looking at differentials, then maybe picking Saka on Saturday, holding off on Haaland, utilising some extra fixtures in there, and then perhaps moving back to him next Saturday, could like a week on Saturday, could be the play. But I definitely don't think that I don't think that what's a non-traditional Sky move by moving Tony to Haaland on Saturday is definitely out of the realms of what I would necessarily consider.
So at the moment, in terms of ownership, Haaland is 39.3. Saka is 88% owned. Now, with that,
I think if you own Saka, right? Yeah, I think all right.
With that information in mind, Saka will very likely, in my opinion, be the highest owned captain on Saturday.
I disagree.
You do disagree, do you? Do you think that people will make the move?
Yeah, I think more people will make the move than what you would think, and I think that anybody owns Haaland or captain Haaland. Like, would you agree?
If they own him, yeah. If they own him.
All of this is based on Haaland starting, obviously.
Yes,
and you get to see the lineup, so that's a good thing. I think that his ownership climbs to more than 50%, and therefore doubling, and then therefore everybody that owns him captains him within a small variance level, and I think that then makes him the most captained player on Saturday, personally. But you mitigate risk by owning both of them anyway.
Man United players, we talked about, hopping off a few Arsenal players. United have got a really, really good short-term run of fixtures. Away to Newcastle on the Sunday. Okay, that's not the best fixture, but it's still a fixture. And Rashford, you'd probably guess, would be the most captained player on Sunday as well. Then midweek, home to Brentford, which could be a great fixture. Home to Everton the following Saturday. Away to Forest the following Sunday. That's a 4-1 over Arsenal, actually. That is pretty massive. What are you thinking in terms of, assuming you'd be bringing in a Man United player or two, what are you thinking on those assets?
Yeah, it's 4-1, but that has to form part of either a daisy chain or to go back to Arsenal, who you then lose again, an Arsenal player.
If you want to go back, I'm going on the thing here that you may retain a couple. You don't have to go back to Arsenal, do you?
Yeah. No. So it's 4-1 before moving on again. Otherwise, the Arsenal player catches them in the next fixture set. But I think out of all the peripheral players, that if you line up your captains of who's the best captain for each day, and you've got all of those in place, and then you're looking for your extra fixture gains on the luxury moves outside of that, then I think Bruno ranks pretty high on that list. As does Maddison, and I really like all the Brighton players as well. If you don't own Dunk, I would add Enzo to that list as well.
I'm surprised you're not going for Enzo. I thought he's your kind of player.
He is, but loosely looking at transfer values and such like, and penning in future moves I know what to make. We just talked about getting Salah back in, and making sure I can remove the player that I want to remove to bring Salah in and retain the likes of Saka. So I went through, first and foremost, every fixture for the next 3 or 4 weeks and said, right, who do I want as captain, both for a combination of who I think will score the most and who I think will be the highest captained player on that day. And then looking on Ian Parron's planner, looking at what budget I would need to be able to do that. I think by getting Enzo in for as part of removing one of my Arsenal players rather than someone that's a little bit cheaper, then that kind of binds me almost to make moves that I might need to be more flexible with. It's finding that balance. I'm not if I owned Enzo, I definitely wouldn't be getting rid of him, and I'm not completely ruling out getting him because I think he's a great Sky asset. It's for those reasons, and then I know that after the blank week that I can get him in the following week for a player that I was looking to lose at that point anyway, and then I've gone from the end of the season then.
When do you think the best time to get Salah is. Obviously, they're away to City this week and away to Chelsea on Tuesday, and there are pretty decent alternative captaincy options. Arguable for arguable for Tuesday the 4th potentially. We'll be podding before that again, so we'll know a bit more. And then home to Arsenal on Sunday the 9th. Looking at the other fixture candidates, there's not a lot there, is there really? Well, it'd be Arsenal against Liverpool. But
they play Forest at home the following Saturday to that after that Arsenal game after that Leeds game as well, isn't it?
Monday the 17th for me, when Arsenal have the single game day against Leeds at the moment, is looking the optimal time. Is that the same for you, or would you look to get earlier? Or
yeah, I think if I've got budget, knowing that I'll probably, if I don't bring in Haaland this week, I'll be likely bringing him in next week. So knowing that I'll be using a bit of budget to use there, I've planned my transfers that I could make the move on either Sunday the 9th of April or Monday the 17th of April. So I definitely wouldn't be going into Monday the 17th of April without him personally. But you could make an argument that he's the best captain on Sunday the 9th of April as well. So in my loose transfer plans, I've got him penciled in on the 9th, but that could change and I could bring him in the following week.
Yeah, this is where it's good that you get to see a week's action again in it, because it always helps you decide on these 50-50s. Let's have a quick look at the transfers remaining then. This will probably, I think, was this update pre the weekend? The 16th, I think it was, wasn't it? So this is probably lower again now. But top 10 went down from 12.9 to 11.1, which includes 3 of our teams, Paul. Or did it include the 3 when this was done? I don't know if it did it?
But the new one does, which is very, very interesting, because I know what your transfer count is. You know what mine is. And
30.
Yeah, well, that's yours, yeah. But what's interesting is that the average, and every one of those teams has much more than the average, and the averages went down with us going into the top 10 rather than it going up. So it seems like either a lot of transfers were moved, or people that you've overtaken to get in had perhaps a few more than that. But what we've been able to do as well is combine our averages, subtract that off the total transfers left, and we can see an average for the remaining 7 players as well. So,
but we also know that another 2 or 3 players, the top 10, who are very, very good fantasy managers. Couple in our hub chats and bits and pieces. So you probably guess that they've got kind of similar to us as well. I would guess, but yeah, it does give us a kind of a profile, I think, don't it, of how it looks. Obviously, between the top 10 and 20, 30, 40, there could be players with loads of transfers, right? Because that is just an average. But
there's a lot of experienced names in and behind you now. And
Niall's just on my tail. I've been like this. For those not, I've been kind of up and down with Niall for almost since the World Cup. I don't think I've been more than 10 points adrift of Niall either way since the World Cup, and I think our teams are very similar. And I can't shake him, and I know he's waiting like a cobra just to pounce at the right time, trying to hold him off. I think he's on the Planet FPL pod this week, Sky Pod. So make sure you give that a listen. I certainly will be. And the top 100 average went down from 13.4 to 12.2. Top 1,000 14.1 to 12.8. Top 5,000 14.2 to 12.3. Obviously, not forgetting as well that we have players like really experienced great players, Ian Parrin and the like, who are just poised as well at I think 40th or 50th place, who are likely to have more transfers than us as well. I was thinking about it last week. It's really interesting. What's brilliant? I think obviously the more and more a game is played, the more content is done, the more insight you get into a game. This balance in it. It's the balance of using your transfers at the right time, because I was always thought if you save them back, you will do well if you're disciplined enough, or if you fly ahead. But trying to find that balance, that burn down chart of optimal transfer usage against the end of the season is the trick in it, and we still don't know. Because you for example have still got like a, I don't know, say an 80 or 90 point lead over Ian Parrin. Now that on paper sounds fantastic, but if he's got 10 transfers on you, obviously the value of a transfer lessens as we get deeper into the season. But have you already done enough, I suppose, in terms of, because each of those transfers he makes now have to work out. So it's really interesting how we, when we analyse our seasons in the summer and we analyse these latecomers and bits and pieces, we should be able to plot out a pretty, what was the optimal route for this one. Obviously luck will play a part and stuff, but it's all interesting.
I'm tracking a value of a transfer since I started that at the turn of the year. It's 16.2 for me, but I mean, I have hit players at the right time, so there's an element of luck as well as planning. That, like the Martinelli when you couldn't predict that run, even though I made that move because they had 4 nice fixtures. The next 4, I'd considered moving them off at that point, and holding on to them, but it proved.
But the value now will start to deteriorate quite quickly, I think, because there's a finite of games left to actually even be played, right? Some teams have only got 10 games left. So, and in that time, other teams will play lots of games. The 5, we've seen strings of 5-for-1s, like Chelsea had a 5-for-1 over other teams a little while ago. Was it Arsenal? I can't think. Arsenal had 4 or 5-for-1s. They will become less and less now. And we all know the fixtures now as well, because we didn't know the fixtures a lot of the time of how they were going to land. We know the vast majority of them now. We know that people are going to land on Brighton at the right time, for example, because it's really obvious now. So I do think that 16.2 from the World Cup up until now is, I think I've always kind of said, I think between 12 and 15 points I'd see as a success. I think you thought it was a little bit less. So I do think the 16 for me is about right where we are in the season, but I do think it will lessen now. And if you can get 10 to 12 points off your transfer, I think you're doing well, because a lot of the time you're only getting small marginal gains, like a game or 2, rather than these 4 or 5-for-1s.
Gameweek 39 in Sky. After teams play on a Saturday, there's potential 7-for-4s until the end of the season. So that's not 7-for-4, and then you have to make a transfer. You have to book in a second transfer. That's no more transfer. You run this team to the end of the season. There's going to be pure 7-for-4s at that point in time as well. So again, fixture volume for teams that you might want to run till the end of the season. Great opportunity there.
Indeed. You wanted just to talk about kind of when to use transfers as well, in terms of, I think both of us have. I've certainly used a couple of 2-for-0s recently. Actually, there's 3-for-1s coming up. There's the Man United 4-for-1 over Arsenal. But obviously now that our transfers are getting more limited, every move counts now, right? Every move should probably have quite a definite goal. There's no more luxury moves left, right? If the average is 11 or 12. That's not far off 1 per game week left, so you can't just be messing around.
I think I just don't want to be. This is what I think I was trying to get earlier on, but I appreciate the daisy chain point. If you are doing it like that, I don't want to be taking out any players that I then want to get back in now.
Yeah,
I want to be thinking long term, at least, with
definitely
a large proportion of the moves that I'm making. And hence, if I am doing, when am I comfortable that I'm taking the player out, that I'm not going to want him even as a captain or as a retainer long term. So this weekend obviously does feel like a good move to move off some of the Arsenal players. There's another jump off point. Kind of when that blank game week, say it is Sky, it is FPL 32, it's Sky week 38. That after that game week, perhaps the teams that play on the Saturday have just played blank game week as well. So you've got the extra fixture volumes for those teams that are appearing on the Sunday, because you know that they've got additional games to play in. It's very, very similar to the situation that we've got this weekend coming as well. So there's another opportunity for almost like a reset. Like we reset now for the next 2 or 3 weeks. way, then the players play on the Saturday, and then you reset the following week as well. There's certainly opportunities. I think Brentford's another one around about that time as well. Whether it's Rhea, if you're still holding Tony and he's not got booked till that point, there's another opportunity to come off those players as well. I was going to say Zaha as well, but I'm never getting him back. So
good stuff. Let's have a look. Oh, sorry. So just in terms of where you think you'll spend your remaining, however many transfers, I know you said you're not going to change the way you've been playing, and that's very fair. So it sounds to me like you're going to spread out your remaining transfers probably over the period, as in you're not planning on holding loads back or going for it early. You're just going to keep kind of massaging and manoeuvring through the fixtures each week and just optimise and just hoping everyone else gets ill-disciplined and blows their load or kind of whatever else.
Small little chunk period of settlement. Small little chunk period of settlement.
That's why we're doing most of the season. I think I've been calling it like, you almost get like phases of the season. You can see like we spotted this Arsenal phase a while ago, didn't we? Where this will be heavy on Arsenal, which is the primary focus. But then is obviously you're making transfers around that there, and I think this for me this phase now is. For me, it's coming off not all Arsenal. Like I say, they're really good assets in their own right. They've still got lots of fixtures. They're still fantastic players. But I see this as like a next transition to the next phase of the season. And I think there will then be another transition as we settle in at the end on Man City, Man United, Brighton. They have so many fixtures, and that's how I'll be playing it as well. Interesting stuff.
One bit of advice I would offer to listeners at this point in time. So there's been a lot of comment and fair comment this season about we don't need the budget. We don't need the budget. Like it's easy to plan this season. Don't need the budget. I guarantee that the majority of managers, maybe not all, like everyone's playing a different game, but the majority of managers are going to be tight on budget soon. Use a planner. Use a planner when you're making moves, whether it's impulsive moves or whether it's really thought out moves and how you're doing it. Use a planner to see if you're going to need the budget for future moves, because I think it's going to come massively back into prominence. Like the teams that you just mentioned there, Brighton have a lot of like mid-priced, really good options, but your Man United, your Liverpool's got a good run. They've got that captaincy day and that small swing of fixtures. And your Man Cities, if Diaz still ends up playing every game till the end of the season now, and perhaps you want Rodri back, they've got a lot of fixtures at the end. That makes sense. That the budget's going to start getting eaten up again pretty quickly. So
I think that's a really good point, and that's why I was contemplating just before the break and whether to take out Salah, because I did see him as a key cog in it. I thought if I had Salah, Enzo. Who's the other player? I can't think of the other player. Or maybe they were two and thinking of a third one. But I thought if I had three of those cheap type players, maybe like a Brighton mid or something. But if I had those three players, you should be reasonably well set to be able to get in 3 or 4 premiums. Like I can imagine Van Dijk, for example, becoming really popular again soon. 10.7, I think he is, which is mega, and he just sounds a bit like no premium defenders have been an option all season yet, have they? So we're not used to having to fulfill that price point, but soon they go on an amazing run of fixtures where they've got like 5. I think it's like a 5 for 2 over lots of teams. It might even be a 4 or 5 for 1 over Man City, for example. So lots and lots of options there. Let's have a look at this coming game week. We've touched on it already. Saturday, 1st of April. April Fool's Day. Very, very apt. Man City play Liverpool first. Thank goodness we get to see the starting lineup, because those having an eye on Haaland will get to, they'll get to see the lineup. They'll get to see if he starts. I don't own Haaland at the moment, and I am massively torn on what to do. It's going to be one of those see how I feel in the moment, because Liverpool have just been mega inconsistent, haven't they? I know they've improved defensively recently, but I still don't think they've actually looked very good defensively, if that makes sense. I still think City can rip them open. So big decision to make there. Forest against Wolves, Palace, Leicester, Brighton against Brentford, Arsenal, Leeds. Another big game for Sky. Arsenal, in all fairness, haven't really let us down in the last few, have they? Who did they beat midweek 4-0? That was a pretty...
Everton.
That was a good result.
The defensive assets have been a bit strange because they haven't kept that many clean sheets over that period of time, but then with a Zinchenko goal and a Gabriel goal and Salah's hit the bonuses over that period of time, so they've ticked along in their own right without even needing the volume of clean sheets over it.
Yep. Bournemouth and Fulham, Chelsea and Villa. Captaincy, like we said, Saka 80-something% owned, Haaland only 39%. If Haaland starts, you would expect that to go over. What percent do you think that would go to, Paul, if he does start?
60.
Okay, and bearing in mind, probably those who haven't got him have probably got 5 or 6 million in the bank, haven't they? Because they would have just done a direct downgrade to, I don't know, Watkins or something like that. So you're saying Haaland captain.
If I own talent, if you could pick it, if you could pick any captaincy, who do I think is the best captaincy today? I think Liverpool's conceded the most big chances since the restart after the World Cup. Or I'm throwing away quotes I'm throwing away stats like it's definitely. I'm sure I read somewhere that they've conceded that, and we've seen what they're like away from home. Like they've been really poor away from home. I think they've only won 3 games this season away from home. So like Haaland, but like Saka probably as a worthy
opponent,
deputy if needed.
Sunday the 2nd, West Ham, Southampton 2:00, Newcastle, Man United at 4:30. In terms of ownership, I haven't really checked. Just looking at Trippier is actually 75% owned, and Rashford only 59%. Actually, do you think there's competition there for captaincy? Interesting one.
I just I don't think Trippier is as great an asset in Sky as I've said this a few times in the pod. He has done well because Newcastle went through that ridiculous run of clean sheets, but I just don't think he's as great a Sky asset as perhaps what's set out. Although, I think he was a standout captaincy option in the Forest game, only got 2 points there. I'll be captain Rashford in that game. I don't think it's everyone knows the style of play that I play. I think would be easy to read. Is there an argument for Bruno? Perhaps, but if Casemiro's not playing, Bruno might be playing a bit more deeper. Man United's not been particularly great away from home either, though. So Trippier could be a shout. I just think someone like Rashford's ceiling's much higher than Trippier's.
Yeah, agree. And Trippier doesn't get much bonus. He does get assists, but even they have dried it recently. So I'm kind of with you on Trippier. I think if he smashed the bonus or at least got it even some of the time, be a bit more tempted. But I don't think, famous last words, I don't think there's massive upside with him. I'm tempted to give him a miss. I'm not sure.
They've got volume of fixtures, so if you.
But they're not easy, and a lot of them are away.
I think what I'm saying is I wouldn't take him out. I wouldn't be taking him out. But,
no.
The last time that bonus was 7 games ago.
Okay. David Baxter, is there a possibility of people bringing Paulinho back for budget if he returns to 5 points a game? He did regress, didn't he, significantly? We're not sure whether that was because of his bookings or just a change of style of play, but I don't think I will. I don't think I will now, unless he does return to that. But then if he gets another 5 bookings, bear in mind they've still got 11 or 12 to play, so it's quite likely he gets like another massive banny on Mr. Rest of the season, don't he? So I'm not sure, David, to be honest. I don't think I would be doing it yet.
Paulinho's 6.6, and whilst there's no guarantee on bonus or returns from this player, Solly March is 6.9 and has a vast amount of games over Fulham. So.
I just go Enzo and we're done with it, to be honest. He's smashing it at the moment. Monday the 3rd, Everton and Spurs. Kane 96% owned. Not much of a conversation there. Easy one. We'll touch briefly on Tuesday and Wednesday, even though we will be back podding before this. But Leicester, Villa, Leeds, Forest, Bournemouth, Brighton, Chelsea, Liverpool. Not a massively obvious captain here. I think I did mention last year, I do fancy Rodrigo, so he's back fit now. Came off the bench last time and scored. I do think he could be a really good option. Leeds have got some very, very good fixtures coming up. He's one I'm keeping an eye on. Obviously, if you do bring in Maddison on Tuesday the 4th against Villa, he could be a good option. Ollie Watkins could be a good option as well. Salah away to Chelsea. Is that time to bring him in? What's your thinking, Paul?
And then you never mentioned any of the Brighton
I never mentioned
players,
the Brighton players who of course, they're away to Bournemouth. So, yeah.
Yeah, Dunk,
Dunk, 5 points are guaranteed.
Ollie March, yeah. This could be this one, when people are looking for a differential, but not one that could absolutely not a move that you're going against the grain that could ruin your season in one game. This is Tuesday the 4th of April. Seems like that time to make that move where it's lower risk than others. I probably think Dunk's the best captain on that day for the consistency points and like that guaranteed element, but certainly wouldn't point anyone away from like any of those players that you mentioned.
And Wednesday the 5th, United, Brentford, West Ham, Newcastle. You've got to think that Rashford, if he's fit and keeps playing well, he is flagged at the moment, Rashford, isn't he? But if he's fit and playing, you've got to think that people will go for him there. We have had some questions. Thank you so much for those sent them in. A lot of them actually were Arsenal related, so I think it's probably best if we do like a summary maybe on Arsenal, Paul. So Andrew Lee asks about Arsenal, as does Sam Smith, as does Michael Harland, as does Colin Johnston. So most of the questions actually are around Arsenal. So what's your summary on Arsenal players?
Unless you've got a massive amount of transfers, I wouldn't be doing the Arsenal out and Arsenal back in. So only lose players that you don't want in the short to medium term, that you'd consider getting back. So if you own Saka, I personally wouldn't be getting rid of Saka. Maybe one of the defensive options, maybe another midfielder. So maybe you keep the core of 3 Arsenal players or two or three Arsenal players. Keep that as a core, and then move on to others, and perhaps it's players that you've taken out like Haaland or Rashford, and you're looking back for, or there's plenty of alternatives like Maddison, Bruno, Bowen. I'd mentioned any of the Brighton lot on Tuesday are all good options as well.
I think I'm going to retain 2. I think, like I say, Saka is a fabulous option in his own right. I don't really want to make, so I've got 5. I don't want to make 4 transfers. And like I say, they do go on that little run again. So I like to have my team almost in a state where I can, like a state of pivot. I think I've called it before, where I can transition quite quickly to something else. So if I do have 2 Arsenal, I can then quite quickly bring in a third one of choice for that little period again, and then maybe move back off one of them again. So I think I'll probably leave 2, and then maybe bring in a third, and then come off them again potentially. But yeah, go on, mate. Sorry.
If you're really low on transfers, and I'm talking like single figure transfers, I'd be moving 1 or 2, and I would keep the rest until at least the Arsenal Southampton game. Then you've only lost out on maximum 1 fixture from teams, like I mentioned, those 3 teams that have 1 fixture more than Arsenal doing that run, and then reevaluate. You might have injuries in your team at that point. You need to make moves elsewhere, and therefore you're retaining a few transfers till the end of the season as well.
Good shout. SkyFF Wilson says, in your opinion, will 7 to 8 transfers be too many or too little to navigate through May's fixtures? Good question.
5.5 game weeks, I think. It was either 4.5 or 5.5 game weeks. I counted earlier on. Let me double check. 1.
Yeah, 4.5.
Yeah, 4.5 game weeks. I think 5 transfers is good. 5 to 6 covers that. Maybe if you're verging on 7, maybe there's a better opportunity to play one a little bit earlier than that, in those kind of cluster groups like we mentioned earlier on.
Yeah, you've got to think.
I don't think it's not too few.
Yeah, And you have to think at that point or that time that a lot, we all know who to be on at that point, right? In terms of volume of fixtures anyway. So people will be gradually transitioning their team towards that anyway. So those 4 or 5 will be, almost, well, not luxury, but they will be really handy to have in terms of being able to make a difference between your players. I'm just looking at Liverpool's run at the end of the season. It's ridiculous, really. If you look from, we mentioned Sunday the 9th, home to Arsenal, okay, but after that they go Leeds, Forest, West Ham, Spurs, Fulham, Brentford, Leicester, Villa, Southampton. That is a hell of a run of games. I know I kind of seen it before, but maybe not so much. That's 9 games, whereas other teams have only got 6 or 7. But and that's not including the Arsenal game there. They got like 9 for 6 over Chelsea, 9 for
like I mentioned,
incredible.
Like I mentioned on Gameweek 39, after the blank game week, Liverpool playing that blank game week, but on Sunday the 30th, if you're taking out a team that doesn't have any doubles, like in FPL terms, that play on the Saturday, you can get like the 2 or 3 extra Liverpool games from that point onwards.
Mad, absolutely mad. Another question off Magpie is asked about Haaland. Yeah, so really torn on that, really. On that one, Magpie. That's definitely going to be a last minute call for me. I think
if you've got Tony and you've got the money, I think that's the play.
That's the play.
Personally.
Will Coker, with Foden injury, would you see Mahrez as a good option? I'd win in the short term for sure, but they do finish the season really, really strongly. So I think you can afford to wait maybe a few games just to see how they're lining up. I think in other formats he would be, but Sky I'm not so sure because you're just so dependent on him playing and getting points. So I'd probably leave it until the end of April personally. Paul, any interest in that?
Same as what you've said.
And yeah, that is. Let's have a quick look. Julian, last question. He says, "Welcome back, both, and congratulations. When setting the structure of your team for the running now, how much consideration are you giving to the FPL game week blank 32? As a good few of our players will miss that week, or is it just volume of overall games to consider mainly?"
A bit of combination of both, but like I said, I think that little cluster movement and then the cluster movement, and then after that blank game week mentioned on the Sunday there, you pointed out Liverpool from that point of time onwards is a good run. Maybe there's opportunity to move off. I think it's Ollie Watkins, I think plays on Saturday and doesn't play any doubles, so moving on him. I think Chelsea perhaps. There's definitely a few teams where you get a volume of fixtures there, so even using 3 or 4 can in that game week, similar to what we might be doing this week coming up as well, I'd set up like that. But anytime that you bring in a Brighton player, you know that they've got extra games, so it doesn't look like on surface perhaps that you're getting the immediate volumes, but you will get from then till the end of the season. So maybe like a bit of both.
Yeah, agree. Like I said, I try and get the team in a bit of like a pivot thing. You are going to want to move on Liverpool. You are going to want to go back in a little bit on Arsenal as well. But you are going to want to move on then. So I just plan some kind of daisy chain on and off them personally. Superb, Paul. Just a quick update on the Four Nations League. Let's go up from 7th and 6th. Liam's team. Liam's best team is 2403. Dan Cox 5th, 2438. Ian Parrin, who I believe is, I want to say 48th overall, is 2508. I'm 2554. Paul, your second team in 6th is 2568. And your best team flying high, 2590. Very, very well played there, Paul. On the Hub Members League, which, again, I'm so glad you didn't enter, Paul. In 10th place, we have Barry Moncur, 9th, Dean Hicks, 8th, Billy Anderson. 7th, Mark Wisdish, last year's winner, who is right there and thereabouts. 6th, Niall Murphy, fantastic player who is there or thereabouts as well. 5th, Dale Pointer, fantastic season, Dale. Same for Chris Parry. I'm 1 point ahead in 3rd place, and then David Baxter and Barry Grimes. I mean, look at those names, look at those ranks, look at those points. Absolutely unbelievable. Very, very, very well played, everyone. Absolutely great to see Hub members flying high and and challenging for the overall game. So it'll be superb. That is it for us this week. As you, Glenn says start from 11th. I'm assuming Glenn's in 11th place, but sorry, Glenn. As usual, thank you all so much for watching and listening, and your continued support is much, much appreciated. Thank you, Paul. Where can people find you?
On Twitter at Paul McAnulty1, MCANULTY.
Brilliant. We've just recorded the Nip and a Half podcast as well, which will be live on Spotify later this evening. So if you play kind of multiple games, we do chat Sky and Telegraph and a bit of Dream Team and FPL as well, how we're doing against each other in our competition. A little bit of a spoiler alert. I've closed the gap a little bit on Paul, so it's going to be a very, very interesting finish. We're also recording the Telegraph Fantasy Football podcast tonight. Myself, Carl and Luke are recording that this evening, so that will be live tomorrow as well. So you could have 3 podcasts to listen to tomorrow if you play Sky and Telegraph.
Are you brewing the coffee downstairs, Fergi? Yeah.
What's that? Sorry, brewing the coffee, indeed. The coffee, yeah. Well, no, I am determined to keep this one under an hour and a half, which is going to be incredibly difficult. But seems to only about 3 hours. But no, it will be good. We've a few times gone past midnight, but I just can't do it. I can't do it. So determined to keep it under an hour and a half this time. I'll tell you how we do, Paul. But my handle on Twitter is at @FFH_Fergi. If you like what you watched, please press the like button if you haven't already. Remember to subscribe in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. If you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast versions and leave some comments. We'll be back next week with Paul. I wonder if that rank of 2 could be an even higher number. We will see. To Sky Game Week 36 and the remainder of Sky Game Week 35. Have a great Sky Game Week 35 and goodbye for now.